Welcome to This Podcast is Making Me Thirsty, the number one destination for Seinfeld fans. This is Two Up and Two Down. All right, this episode is the Pez Dispenser from Season 3, a gem written by Larry David. To start us off, Chris is going to give us his first up.
An absolutely classic episode, the Pez Dispenser Season 3. One of my favorite all-time scenes, lines, you name it. It's after the show with the laughing incident. And it's, Jerry and Elaine are talking, and George says, "Will you two cut to the chase?" And Jerry responds, "What are you, Joe Hollywood? I would lose that." And then they get a little back and forth. Lose that? And Jerry says, "That's not Hollywood." So that whole thing, Jerry put on a performance in this episode. I'd say one of his best ever. But that whole cut to the chase line, memorable in my mind. As my first one up for the Pez Dispenser.
Yeah, can't argue that. I got a few written down, so he took one. That's fine. I'll move on to the next. I'm going to go with, I got a lot written down here. I love this episode, as you'll find out. I'm going to say, I'm going to go with, this is an odd one, but I like it. It's not even my top up probably, but I do like this one. I want to get it in there. When George's boy doesn't have a hand anymore and he's nervous on the phone, and he says, I wrote a list of things to talk about on the phone with the girl. As someone who's been there and done that, you write some stuff down just in case you're getting in a bind. George had some stuff written down. How he likes to think one of the things was parking and a few other things he had written down. Kind of a throwaway line, but shows who George is, the root of George there, nervous on the phone, eating apple, that whole thing, kind of a callback to the phone message. So that's my first thumbs up. George trying to be comfortable on a phone call there.
That is a great one. And again, so many in this episode. And, I'm going to go a little different on this one. We love guest stars and guest actors. And I'm going with our buddy John Mullica. Is that how we pronounce his name? The scene that gets me every time, and maybe just it brings me back to something that happens in real life all the time. The tissue in the nose when he's talking to Elaine. This is something I remember my brother always talks about when he picks his nose and he says the same line. I don't know if he got it from this or what, but it's nobody minds. Nobody ever says anything. Like, I don't know. I love it. Obviously, no one's going to say anything, and I'm just, it brings it back to real life stuff. Obviously, if you're picking your nose, no one's going to say anything because it's disgusting. And obviously, he goes back to her and he's talking about the membranes getting dried and the whole thing, and Elaine telling him this isn't appropriate, and he says something like to the effect of, "Because I have a tissue," and Elaine's response is just classic, and she just says, "Getting warm." So that whole John Mullica tissue uncomfortableness second one's up. Sorry, back to you for your second one's up.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, we'll get to it, but all right. All right, I got two here. I want to throw them. I wanted the three in here. I like some of these lines, but I'll use them maybe when I give my grade. Okay, so my second thumbs up here. It's got to be, the whole George, I got hand and you're going to need it ending. It's one of those kind of like showstoppers where she just kind of, not as good as Real Spectacular perhaps, but it's not as good as Mulva, but it's in that vein. This is season 3. Just the whole talking about hand throughout the whole episode of the George. You can't, I am breaking up with you. She throws it back at him, and then you got hand, you're going to need it. So that's my second thumbs up.
All right, here we go. We had a lot more ones up here. We'll probably talk about it during our grade, but you got to find Downs, in season 3, all time favorite season, probably. Downs are tough. It's small, but, at that party that Tony just mentioned, Jerry fake talking to Noelle on the couch. It always kind of bothered. I notice every time, he's the guy's telling the whale story to Elaine, and they're just kind of like, it's just bad acting, and maybe it's meant to be bad acting, but it bothers me. And Jerry talking to Noelle, I mean, come on, so bizarre. And how did that guy how did he get between Elaine and her? Because She came over to the couch, remember? Just between them, huh? And then she kind of gets suckered with Jerry, it's not a party. I said it was a party. You mentioned, but it was obviously no one really knew each other. It felt a little off. But anyway, Jerry fake talk with Noel. First one's down.
That's a great call. You notice it every time. You can't help but notice that. My first thumbs down on this is an otherwise flawless episode, in my opinion. I just think the ending, it just doesn't hit right. Jerry telling that whole story about the Pez dispenser and the father, Smithers Clinic. He's hooked on Pez. That just forced, I guess Larry David just had to come up with something. This is season 3. If this episode ended 5 minutes earlier, it would be, an all-timer. I just feel like that ending throws it off a bit. Smithers Clinic, I guess I get a little chuckle out. It's a funny name. But other than that, just that ending story that Jerry tells around the car accident and everything else, thumbs down on that.
Yep, that was on the list as well. Smithers. I don't know, maybe that was an ode to the Simpsons. Who knows? But again, nitpicking on this show, very difficult. And just this one line, I don't know. The whole flea market, what goes on there? Do they have flea? That whole thing with George, I don't think it was really necessary. They could, like you just said, I think less is more sometimes. It was kind of a throwaway line. I mean, come on, doesn't know what a flea market is? I don't know. Not awful, but for me, I'm going to give that a thumbs down, like you said, in a really good episode. So finish it up with your last down.
Okay. This is interesting because you almost talked me out of my down, but I'm going to go with it. I wrote it down. I actually got John Mullica as a down. I don't know. Something about the guy. Maybe that's his thing. Maybe I go back and forth with him. He probably could be an up if I watch it tomorrow. Something about his jacket. He's just a weird dude. The way he says, he listened to Jerry. Jerry would have to be involved. He respects Jerry. I mean, I guess it was just odd. I don't know what about it, but Mullica, his jacket threw me off outside when Elaine sees him. I don't know, man. The tissue's up the nose. I'm pulling hairs here, whatever you. I mean, I'm splitting hairs, but Mullica was my down. I don't know. I got to say, it's my second down is Mullica. Grade, right? You're going grade. All right.
I hear you on Mullica, and again, the first scene with Mullica, yeah, Jerry has me, yeah, but I don't know. Again, you tie these things to things in your life, and I'm thinking of my brother picking his nose and using that line. So, boom. What do you want me to tell you? All right, this is. It's a tough one to grade. I have 2 grades here. I'm not going above certain thing here. And there's a lot of lines. I mean, this was, to me, Jerry at his best. I mentioned that. The knuckles, the Pez, him coming in, you play a hell of a piano. Just he was just spot on. Kramer was. We didn't talk about Kramer. He was excellent, right? The preemptive breakup, the Calvin Klein. I mean, now I'm talking myself up a little bit here. And I even thought about Noelle, potentially a down, but she's pretty good. Yeah. Wow. You know what? I'm changing my mind here. I'm bumping it a little to an A-. All right. I was stuck on B+, but this is it's really solid. It's everybody at their best, which is whenever it's at their best, you really can't get it out of the A range. I'm sorry. So A- for the Pez dispenser. What do you got?
Very interesting because I was going between 2 scores myself, and I had one written down, and I was going back and forth. So I didn't even mention my 2 favorite lines of this episode on my up, so I got to pull them. Who's intervening? One of my favorite lines of all time. That's one of my favorite lines of all time. Polar bear guy who's intervening. And Kramer, you mentioned Kramer. Who do you think told him to dump the gator on Marty Benson's head? Amazing Kramer line. So, yeah, I give this an A- as well. I almost went to an A during this while we were talking. I almost talked myself into an A, but I got to be fair. I think it's an A-. It's one of my favorite episodes. I think the ending's what brings it down, and I think maybe, I don't know, maybe that's really it. I mean, the ending and just Maybe just not a strong enough Kramer per se, but it is a solid episode. I mean, this is one of the best you're going to get. Mental defective, hell of a fucking line. They use it like 3 different times. Just a great episode. Elaine's laughter in the concert, she's classic, just incredible. So I'm going A- as well. So that's A- on the Pez Dispenser, and on to the next one.